You've got to hear this. 6:20 p.m. Colin Turner is stuck in his own garage, and I mean really trapped, with this weight of fear pressing down on him like nothing before. His phone's glued to his ear, talking to the 911 dispatcher, hoping someone, anyone, will show up to help. And then, out of nowhere, he says the words that just stop you in your tracks. "She just shot me." Can you even imagine that? A day that started like any other. Normal arguments, normal family stress, suddenly spinning completely out of control, turning into something nobody could have predicted. And here's the kicker. The person holding the gun? A high-ranking Navy chief petty officer, someone trained to protect people, to serve, and yet somehow she aimed that weapon at the person she once promised to spend her life with. Tonight, we're diving into the full story of Colin Turner and Bree Kuhn. The fights that got way out of hand, the threats lurking behind closed doors, the arguments and locked doors, and those final moments that shattered a family forever. And if you want to catch every twist, every shocking detail, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story is the kind that makes you stop and realize just how fast life can change. If you're as shocked and tense as I am right now, hit that like button and subscribe, because the story is only going to get darker from here, and you won't want to miss a single detail of how this tragedy unfolded. Colin Turner had spent much of his life in service to his country, retiring from the Navy with honor, and yet despite the discipline, order, and structure that had defined him for years, he was, above all else, a devoted father, someone who cherished his children, and who quietly carried the weight of responsibility that came with guiding them through the early, fragile years of life. And though his marriage had grown increasingly strained, he clung to the hope that his family could still find a way to function, even as tension seemed to build with every passing argument. Bree Kuhn, by contrast, carried authority with an effortless intensity. As a Navy chief petty officer, she commanded respect in her professional life, and she brought that same drive and determination into her home, juggling the responsibilities of a demanding career with the challenges of raising children in a household that had begun to fray under the pressures of daily life, disagreements, and unspoken resentments. And though she was capable, strong, and undeniably ambitious, those qualities sometimes collided with the softer, more patient nature of Colin, leaving cracks in the foundation of their relationship that would only widen over time. Their marriage, once built on shared dreams and mutual support, had transformed into a fragile balance where love and tension coexisted uneasily, and where moments of joy, laughing with their children, quiet mornings at home, celebrations of birthdays and small victories, were increasingly overshadowed by disputes over finances, parenting decisions, and the sense of control each sought to maintain. And although they both wanted what was best for their children, their differences often escalated into arguments that left emotional scars, and left both of them questioning whether the partnership that had once seemed unbreakable could survive. Colin and Bree were not villains or heroes. They were human, flawed, and complicated. And even amid the conflict, there were glimpses of tenderness and care that hinted at the people they had been. Before frustration, stress, and unmet expectations began to dominate their days. And yet, beneath that veneer of normalcy, mental health struggles, financial strain, and disagreements over custody quietly festered, creating a pressure cooker of emotions and tension that neither of them could diffuse, setting the stage for a day that would end in irreversible tragedy. You won't believe how tense that day was. And honestly, if I were telling you over coffee, I'd start right here. Around lunchtime, Bree calls 911, and she's panicked, saying her husband pushed her against the wall and threw her on the floor. She sounded terrified, and the words coming out of her mouth? "My husband pushed me up against the wall and threw me on the floor." I mean, that's serious, right? You'd expect cops to swoop in and find chaos. But here's the thing. When the deputies got there, Colin was just sitting outside, calm as if nothing happened. No scratches, no bruises, nothing. He calmly tells them he didn't touch her, and the officers are left standing there, caught between what Bree said and what Colin said. And you know what makes it even crazier? That was only the start. That morning had already been weird. Colin noticed his laptop, a $2,500 MacBook, somehow ended up in the dishwasher. Like, who does that? And then Bree cut off his access to the family credit cards. Suddenly, small things like money, a missing laptop, or who gets to see the kids aren't just annoyances, they're fuel on a fire that's already burning. Later that afternoon, Colin calls again. He's trying to explain things calmly, and I mean really calm, like he's holding it together while the house is turning into chaos. He tells the dispatcher, "She's got mental health stuff going on. I was just trying to leave for Georgia to get a break, and she took the kids inside and locked me out." Can you imagine that? You're locked out of your own house, your kids are inside, and no one seems to know what to do. The deputies come back, and yet again, they can't really intervene because, technically, there's no visible crime. It's kind of chilling when you think about it, because all these little things, the locked doors, the arguments over money, the kids stuck in the middle, were signs, little red flags waving at everyone, but nobody connected them fast enough. Everything was building quietly, like a storm gathering off the coast, and no one knew just how violent that storm was about to get. Later that afternoon, things escalated even more. Colin calls 911 again, and this time, he's locked out of his own house. Imagine that. Your kids are inside, you're standing on the porch, and the person who's supposed to be your partner is keeping you out. He's trying to reason with Bree, trying to calm his kids, trying to figure out a way to get inside without making things worse. And you can almost feel the tension rising just thinking about it. When the deputies arrive, they're immediately in a bind. Colin is outside, calm but frustrated, explaining the situation as clearly as he can, while Bree is inside, telling her own story, painting a picture that's completely different. No visible injuries, no signs of a real fight, just two sides of a story that completely contradict each other. The officers are stuck in the middle, trying to enforce the law, trying to protect the kids, but without clear evidence of a crime. There's nothing concrete they can do, and that's where the suspense really kicks in, because you're standing there with Colin, looking at the locked doors, seeing the kids caught in the middle, and you start to ask yourself, are the police going to stop this before it turns deadly? Every moment drags on, every second matters, and the tension is practically suffocating, like you can feel the storm building just behind the walls of that house. Colin is calm, but you can hear the frustration in his voice, the worry in his words, and the deputies are doing their best. But the situation is one of those impossible calls where, no matter what they do, someone is going to get hurt. And in this case, that warning was already inching closer to the point of no return. You know, when you look back at what happened that day, it's easy to focus on the events themselves. But the truth is, there were a lot of underlying issues that had been building for months, maybe even years. Bree reportedly had struggles with her mental health. Some reports mention borderline personality disorder, but what's important is that these weren't just labels. They affected how arguments escalated, how trust broke down, and how both Colin and Bree navigated the stress of daily life. On top of that, there was financial pressure. Colin had retired early from the Navy, so Bree was carrying most of the family's financial weight, which naturally created tension. Then there were the kids. 3 children caught in the middle of a marriage that had become a constant battleground. Co-parenting was tense at best, and disagreements about custody and visitation often turned into power struggles. Both parents wanted what they thought was best, but in the process they ended up fueling each other's frustrations. And over time, little incidents, locked doors, withheld access to money, arguments in front of the kids, started to pile up. Experts often say situations like this rarely explode overnight, and looking at the Turner-Kuhn household, it's easy to see why. The tension, the unresolved conflicts, the pressure and the emotional manipulation that crept into day-to-day life were all warning signs. Little sparks in a house full of flammable fuel, and nobody outside fully realized just how close that spark was to becoming a disaster. And then it happened. The moment that would change everything. Colin had gone back into the house to collect his belongings, the items that had been taken from him earlier that day, and as he stepped into the garage, Bree locked the door behind him. Imagine standing there, realizing the door is locked and there's no escape, while someone you thought you knew has a gun in their hand. Colin immediately called 911, trying to get help, trying to stay calm while explaining what was happening. And then, in the most terrifying moment, the first shot rang out. He whispered to the dispatcher, "She just shot me." And in those seconds, you could feel everything snapping, all the arguments, all the tension, all the fear collapsing into one brutal instant. Then came the subsequent shots. 3 more piercing the air, and then silence. A silence so complete it's almost unbearable to imagine. And the kids, standing just feet away or nearby, witnessed the horror in some way, whether directly or through the sudden, incomprehensible chaos of their world shattering. It's impossible not to feel the weight of that moment, knowing that everything Colin had tried to protect, his children, his home, his life, was ripped away in a matter of seconds, and all that remained was the sound of sirens racing toward a tragedy that nobody could stop in time. When the officers finally arrived, the scene was something straight out of a nightmare. Colin Turner was dead in the garage, lying in a pool of his own blood, and Bree was standing there, completely frozen, her face blank, as if the reality of what she'd done hadn't quite reached her yet. It was the kind of chaos that makes your stomach twist. Everything moving at once, sirens blaring, neighbors gathered, children screaming or crying, and yet amid all that noise, there was a deafening, heavy silence that hung over the garage. The children became the immediate focus. Officers quickly removed them from the scene, bringing them to a neighbor's house for safety. You can almost see the confusion on their faces, the terror, the disbelief. 3 young kids suddenly ripped from the only sense of normalcy they had left, trying to understand why their world had just collapsed. Body cam footage later revealed the surreal quality of the moment. Trained officers describing a scene so chaotic, yet so painfully quiet. A house that had been a home, now transformed into the epicenter of unimaginable tragedy. Every second that passed was a reminder that some things, once done, can never be undone. Soon after, Bree was taken in for questioning, and this is where the story started twisting in ways nobody could have predicted. On body cam, she initially confessed to shooting Colin, her words coming out rushed, panicked, almost mechanical. "I shot him. I didn't mean to. I had to." But as the interrogation went on, everything she said began to shift. Her story changed, her memory seemed unreliable, and the detectives could see the cracks forming in real time. She claimed self-defense, insisting that she feared for her life, but the evidence painted a different picture. There were no injuries on her body, no visible struggle, and everything the 911 dispatcher and neighbors had witnessed suggested Colin had remained calm, even during the argument. The detectives pressed her relentlessly. "Why did you have the gun? What made you fire 4 times?" Each answer contradicted the last, and each contradiction pulled her further away from credibility. Then there was her background, being a Navy chief petty officer, someone trained to handle tense, high-pressure situations. That detail loomed over the investigation like a shadow. If anyone should have de-escalated, she would have known how. Her authority and training made her actions seem even more deliberate, and the detectives could feel the weight of that as they pieced together the timeline. At that moment, it wasn't just a murder investigation. It was a psychological puzzle, a race to understand how a trained, disciplined officer could commit such a violent act. And for anyone watching, anyone following along, the question was impossible to ignore. Will she be convicted? Can her story survive the scrutiny of evidence and testimony? Every word she said, every inconsistency, every pause built toward a courtroom battle that would ultimately decide the fate of everyone involved. The courtroom was tense from day one. Bree Kuhn faced charges of first-degree premeditated murder, and right from the start, it was clear this trial wouldn't be easy for anyone involved. Prosecutors painted a detailed picture of what happened in the garage: the locked doors, the phone call, the 4 shots fired, and every piece of evidence, from the 911 recordings to body cam footage, was laid bare. Cross-examinations were intense. Detectives, witnesses, and experts were questioned rigorously, and Bree's own statements were scrutinized relentlessly. Questions about her mental state, her actions as a trained Navy officer, and the inconsistencies in her story became the focus, forcing the jury to decide whether this was a tragic accident or a deliberate, premeditated act. After days of testimony, arguments, and heart-wrenching details about Colin's final moments, the verdict came. The jury found Bree guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. The sentence was life without parole, a decision that reflected the severity of her actions and the calculated nature of what had unfolded. And for viewers, it's almost impossible not to reflect. How a series of seemingly ordinary arguments, locked doors, and escalating tensions could spiral so violently, so quickly, into tragedy. After the trial, life for the children was irrevocably changed. Taken from the scene, placed with neighbors and family, they had to navigate a world where their father was gone and their mother was serving a life sentence. The community was stunned. Media outlets covered the case extensively, dissecting every moment, every phone call, and every decision made that day. Beyond the headlines, though, the story serves as a painful lesson. Mental health struggles, domestic conflicts, and gaps in intervention all played a role in how this tragedy unfolded. It's a reminder of how fragile family dynamics can be, how crucial timely intervention is, and how small red flags, locked doors, withheld access to money, escalating arguments can sometimes go unnoticed until it's too late. And as you sit with this story thinking about it, there's a question that lingers. Could this have been prevented? What would you have done if you were in the deputy's shoes? This case is shocking, heartbreaking, and unfortunately, all too human. If it made you think, if it raised questions about mental health, domestic violence, or the ripple effects of conflict, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Share this video to raise awareness, because the more people understand the warning signs, the better chance tragedies like this can be prevented. And if you want more true crime breakdowns, with expert insights and stories that leave you questioning what you thought you knew, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There's so much more coming, and you won't want to miss it.